Welcome to the Urban Herald Deep Dive. We're part of the Urban Herald team. And today our mission is really to peel back those layers, cut through the fake cobwebs and look at the true story behind Halloween.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the world's second biggest commercial holiday, which is kind of wild when you think about it.
It really is. And it's history. It stretches back, what, nearly 3,000 years?
Easily. We're talking about a journey from like these ancient mystical hills in Ireland
Yeah.
all the way to the giant brightly lit aisles of a modern costume superstore.
Yeah.
It's quite the contrast.
So we're looking at how this really profound spiritual thing turned into this massive global business. Over $12 billion a year just in the U.S., right?
That's the figure, yeah. Well over $12 billion. It's staggering.
So for you, our listener, we want to give you that full picture, really unpack how this deep tradition from the Irish countryside managed to survive, empires, new religions, even famine and global capitalism.
And somehow, kind of against the odds, it kept hold of its ancient soul. It's remarkable.
So where do we start? Gotta be the beginning, right?
Has to be. We need to go back to the very core. Samhain.
Samhain. Okay, and remind us how that's pronounced.
It's generally So-in or maybe Samhain. This was the actual Celtic New Year.
Not just another date on the calendar.
Oh, much more. It was like a cosmic dividing line, the transition point.
So
From the light half of the year, summer, the harvest, abundance into the dark half, winter, scarcity, uncertainty, a really fundamental shift.
and that happened when exactly?
Right around October 31st into November 1st. Specifically, between sunset on the 31st and sunset on the 1st. That was the pivot point.
Okay, so let's unpack Samhain a bit more. It wasn't just about the seasons changing, was it? There was a deeper spiritual idea.
Absolutely. The real power came from this idea of the thinning veil.
The thinning veil, what did that mean to the Celts?
Well, the Celts were really tuned into these liminal moments,
Whoa.
thresholds between states of being, between times.
It's like dawn or dusk.
Exactly. And Samhain was the ultimate threshold. It was the night when the boundary between our physical world and the spirit world,
The world is the dead.
and the AOC spirits or fairies, that boundary became permeable. It just sort of melted away for that night.
And they believed this literally, not just as a metaphor.
Oh, for them, it was the reality of how the cosmos worked on that specific night. Very real.
What's really striking is that this reverence, this focus on this time of year, it might actually be older than the Celts themselves.
It seems that way. The evidence is literally set in stone in the Irish landscape.
Like where?
Think about the Mound of the Hostages at the Hill of Tara. It's a Neolithic passage tomb.
Neolithic, so really old.
Yeah, dated between 4,500 and 5,000 years ago. That's way before the Celts arrived in Ireland.
Okay.
But this ancient tomb, used for burials and rituals, it's aligned perfectly with the sunrise around the time of Samhain.
Wow. So people living there thousands of years before the Celts already saw this time as special.
It strongly suggests that, yes, the sacredness of the time seems to have preceded the specific Celtic cultural framework. They inherited and built upon something ancient.
So the Celts inherited this, and they focused their own big rituals around it. Where did these famous ceremonies happen?
The main hub, the epicenter for the big Samhain fire rituals, was the Hill of Tlachtga.
Tlachtga, now called the Hill of Ward.
That's right, in County Meath. We know from 17th century writers that this was the spot for the Great Samhain Fire Festival.
And the location itself was significant.
Hugely. It's named after Tlachtga. She was a sun goddess, daughter of a really powerful druid, Mo Ruth. So that connection alone tells you this wasn't just a community bonfire.
It was deeply religious, tied to cosmic power, the sun, the start of the new year.
Precisely. It marked the official beginning.
And the ceremonies themselves, they weren't just random acts, right? They were designed to manage this chaos of the thinning veil.
Exactly. Very sophisticated acts of transformation.
Yeah.
The most dramatic one socially was the fire ceremony.
Tell us about that.
Okay, so imagine this. Every single hearth fire in every home in the community was deliberately put out, extinguished.
Total darkness.
Right. Then they were all relit. But not just with any flame. They had to be relit from the central sacred Samhain bonfire ignited there at Tlachtga.
Wow. What was the point of that?
Well, it served a few purposes. Practically, it was like starting the year fresh, clean slate, spiritually purification.
Okay.
But maybe most importantly, it symbolized community unity. Everyone drawing from the same sacred source. It reinforced their interdependence. If that main fire didn't light, or if you couldn't get the flame back home.
That would be a bad omen for the winter, a tough, isolated winter ahead.
Exactly, high stakes.
So how did they deal with the actual spirits, the Ayalsi, who were believed to be wandering around?
Right, the IOSC, these spirits or fairies, they were thought to come out from the ancient burial mounds, places like Newgrain.
And were they like ghosts,
Yeah.
evil spirits?
Not exactly like our modern idea of ghosts. They were more like powerful beings of the land, part of the natural world. Sometimes helpful, sometimes mischievous or dangerous. You had to be careful.
How did you deal with them then?
Respect was key. Hospitality, and crucially, disguise.
Okay, so this is where the costumes come in. Guising.
Yes, but the original purpose was totally different from why we wear costumes now. It wasn't about fun or even really about scaring people.
What was it about then?
It was basically survival, self-preservation. Guising meant putting on these rough costumes, maybe animal skins, maybe masks carved from turnips or gourds.
Okay.
And the point wasn't to frighten the spirits away. It was to achieve protective anonymity.
To blend in.
Exactly. You wear the disguise, you look like one of the wandering spirits, maybe they don't notice you, the living person. You avoid attracting their attention, avoid trouble, avoid owing them anything. It was camouflage in a spiritually charged environment.
That completely changes how you think about Halloween costumes, doesn't it? From being scary to being hidden.
It really does. And this respect extended to their own dead, too.
How so?
Ancestral hospitality was huge. Families would cook a feast, and they'd actually set places at the table for relatives who had passed away.
Welcoming them back.
Yes, because the core Celtic belief wasn't that death was a final end. It was a transformation. Your loved ones were still part of the family, just in a different state, and on Samhain, they could come home for the night. They needed to be welcomed and respected.
So a mix of caution towards unknown spirits and welcome towards ancestors.
A very nuanced relationship with the other world.
And what about things like bobbing for apples? We still do that, but it seems like it was more serious back then.
Oh, much more serious. These were divination practices, fortune-telling.
Why then? Why Samhain?
Because the veil was thin. It was considered the best possible time for druids and even ordinary people to try and get a glimpse of the future.
What were they trying to find out?
Practical things, mostly. They'd use nuts to predict, say, if a relationship would work out. Apples were often used for marriage prospects or trying to figure out how harsh the coming winter would be.
So bobbing for apples was originally a way to see if you'd get married.
Essentially, yes, among other things. These weren't just party games. Scholars think they involved some complex observations, maybe even aligning with stars. It highlights how sophisticated their beliefs were, way beyond simple superstition. Knowing the future was crucial for survival, especially in an agricultural society.
Okay, so we have this incredibly powerful ancient tradition, Samhain, deeply woven into the culture. Then Christianity arrives in Ireland and across Europe. Usually the church tried to stamp out pagan practices, didn't it?
Often, yes. But Ireland was different. The encounter between Celtic paganism and early Irish Christianity is really a classic case study in religious syncretism.
Syncretism meaning blending together.
Exactly. Instead of just trying to destroy Samhain, the church seemed to recognize how deeply important it was to the people this need to mark the season, to honor the dead. So they opted for a different strategy.
Which was?
To absorb it, to reframe the existing practices within a Christian context. It made the conversion process much smoother.
How did they actually do that? What was the mechanism?
It was basically clever timing, calendar management, really. In the 9th century, Pope Gregory III made a key move. He officially set November 1st as All Saints' Day.
All Hallows Day, honoring all the Christian saints.
Right, but crucially, he moved that major feast day from May to November 1st.
Ah, okay. Directly overlapping with Samhain.
Precisely. It was a brilliant administrative stroke. It gave people a Christian reason to do what they were already doing, gathering, remembering the departed, marking that time of year.
So it redirected that existing spiritual energy.
Perfectly, and they didn't stop there. They then designated November 2nd as All Souls' Day, specifically for praying for all the ordinary faithful who had died.
Creating the 3-day period.
Yes, All Hallowtide. 3 days dedicated to the dead saints and souls. And the night before All Saints' Day, October 31st.
That became the preparation night.
Right, All Hallows Eve, the evening before All Hallows Day. And over time, through linguistic changes, All Hallows Eve got contracted down to
Halloween. There it is.
There it is.
And you mentioned Irish Christianity being maybe more adaptable. Did that help this blending process?
Oh, definitely. You can't discount the role of the Irish monks. Their approach was often quite different from the more rigid Roman Church structure on the continent.
How so?
They seem to have a more, let's say, fluid and intellectual relationship with the older pre-Christian traditions. They incorporated nature, mythology into their own Christian narratives.
Which made it easier for people to accept the new faith.
It certainly seemed to. It showed that you could adopt Christianity without completely abandoning your ancestral ways. And this Irish model actually influenced how Christianity spread in other parts of medieval Europe, too.
Okay, so this blending, this syncretism, led to new practices like souling. How did that work? Was it like the old guising?
Similar on the surface, but the purpose was different. Souling was explicitly Christian, tied to All Hallows Tide.
What happened?
Basically, poorer people, often children, would go door to door around November 1st and 2nd. They'd ask for soul cakes.
Soul cakes, what were they?
Specific little cakes or biscuits, often marked with a cross, maybe spiced with things like cinnamon or nutmeg, expensive spices back then.
And what did they offer in return? Not songs or jokes like the geysers.
No, this was about spiritual currency. They offered prayers. Prayers for the souls of the household's deceased relatives.
Ah, helping them through purgatory.
That was the belief.
Yeah.
It was seen as a really valuable service. You give me a soul cake, I pray for your Aunt Mary's soul. It was a direct reciprocal exchange.
And this was a well-known thing.
Oh, yeah. Shakespeare even mentioned souling in one of his plays, The Two Gentlemen of Verona, back in 1593. So it was a deeply embedded tradition in the British Isles for centuries. The more cakes you got, the more prayers you were expected to offer. A sacred transaction, really.
Okay, this is where things get really iconic, isn't it? The jack-o'-lantern. That grinning orange pumpkin is probably the symbol of Halloween today.
It absolutely is.
But its origins are much darker. And not orange.
Not orange at all, and much darker, yes. The story starts, apparently, in 18th century Dublin with this figure from Irish folklore, Stingy Jack.
Stingy Jack sounds like quite the character.
He was the ultimate trickster figure, you know, a real cunning guy, liked to drink, a bit of a miser, and supposedly he was so clever he managed to trick the devil himself twice.
Twice? How did he manage that? That's playing with fire.
Literally. Okay, so the first time, legend says Jack convinced Satan to turn himself into a coin so Jack could pay for their drinks.
Okay.
As soon as Satan did, Jack snatched the coin and popped it in his pocket right next to a silver cross. The devil was trapped, couldn't change back.
Clever.
And the second time, Jack supposedly tricked the devil into climbing up an apple tree to get him an apple. Once Satan was up there, Jack quickly carved a cross into the trunk of the tree.
Trapping him again.
Yep. Satan couldn't climb down past the cross. Jack made him promise never to claim his soul before he'd let him down.
Which probably seemed like a great deal at the time.
But a terrible long-term strategy. Because when Jack eventually died, well, he'd lived such a sinful life, he obviously wasn't getting into heaven.
Right.
But when he got to the gates of hell, the devil just laughed at him. Said, "Nope, sorry, Jack. I promised I wouldn't take your soul, remember?"
So he was barred from heaven and hell.
Exactly. Condemned to just wander in the darkness between worlds forever. Totally lost.
That's bleak.
Very. And the only thing Satan gave him, supposedly out of pity or maybe mockery, was a single burning ember, a coal from the fires of hell, to light his way in the dark.
Just one ember. And Jack needed something to carry it in.
And the story goes, he hollowed out a turnip, just a common root vegetable he had put the ember inside, and that became the very first Jack-o'-the-lantern.
Jack-o'-the-lantern, wow. And this story, it fit right in with Samhain, didn't it?
Perfectly. The wandering spirit, stuck between worlds, the consequences of being too clever. Jack became this symbol of the restless dead that you really didn't want bumping into on Samhain night.
So people started making their own lanterns to scare them away?
Basically, yes. Irish families began carving these grotesque, really frightening faces into turnips, or sometimes potatoes, or even mangel-wurzels. Those are big root vegetables they used for cattle feed.
Not exactly festive decorations then.
Not at all. They were put in windows, by doors, as spiritual protection, to ward off Stingy Jack himself and maybe any other nasty spirits wandering about on Samhain. Serious stuff.
And we really need to picture this carving a turnip. That's not easy.
No. Anyone who's tried knows they're incredibly dense, fibrous. It would take in real effort.
So the original lanterns must have looked genuinely creepy. Small, shadowed, maybe distorted because the turnip isn't perfectly round.
Exactly. Much more unsettling than a big, round, easy-to-carve pumpkin. They were meant to be terrifying. Tools of folk magic, really.
So how did we get from the scary turnip to the cheerful pumpkin?
That shift happens when the Irish immigrate to America. especially in huge numbers during the Great Famine in the mid-19th century, 1845 to 1852.
They brought the tradition with them.
They absolutely did. They
Ugh.
brought the Stingy Jack story, the tradition of carving lanterns for protection. But when they got to America,
No turnips. Or not as many.
turnips weren't as common or easy to get hold of.
Right.
But what America did have in abundance was pumpkins.
Ah, the Native American gourd.
Right, a New World crop they wouldn't have known back in Ireland. And pumpkins were perfect.
Why?
Well, they're bigger, for one. They grow easily. And critically, they are so much easier to hollow out and carve because the flesh is softer, the rind is thinner.
So practical adaptation.
Exactly. The pumpkin just became the new, easier vessel for Jack's light. It's a great example of cultural adaptation immigrants, using a new resource to keep an old, important tradition alive, especially in a new country where they often faced a lot of prejudice. Okay, so trick-or-treating. It feels like such a modern, simple thing, ring doorbell, get candy. But it's not really a single invention, is it?
No, it seems like it's got this long, tangled history, a kind of convergence of these older exchange rituals we've talked about.
Exactly. It's got roots stretching way back to that Celtic guising and through the medieval souling practice. It's all built on this idea of reciprocal exchange.
Let's just quickly recap the difference again. Souling was the Christian one.
Right. Tied to All Hallows Eve, the poor offering prayers for souls in exchange for soul cakes. Very theological, a specific service.
And guising. That was more common in Scotland and Ireland.
Yeah, guising was more performance-based. Kids, or sometimes young adults, would dress up, yes, but they were expected to perform something. A song, maybe recite a poem, tell a joke, do a little skit, something entertaining. And in return, they'd get food, or maybe some coins, or even fuel like peat for the fire. You had to earn your treat with talent.
Okay, so they bring these traditions, souling, guising across the Atlantic. And you mentioned that they faced a lot of anti-Irish, anti-Catholic feeling in America.
They really did, especially in the 19th century. So for many Irish immigrants, keeping these traditions going wasn't just habit. It was an act of defiance almost, a way to hold on to their identity in a hostile environment.
So how did it evolve in America initially? Was it door-to-door right away?
Not quite like we see today. Early on, American Halloween celebrations tended to be more community-based. Harvest parties, gatherings with neighbors. They'd tell ghost stories, play divination games like the apple and nut things we mentioned, maybe some dancing.
So the door-to-door guising, the performance part, it continued, but maybe wasn't the main event.
It seems it was part of it, but maybe more contained within communities initially.
Okay, so what changed? What took it from that performance-based thing to just trick-or-treat and get candy? When did that big shift happen?
That big transformation really kicks in around the mid-20th century, after World War II. A few key things came together.
Like what?
Well, first, the post-war economic boom. People just had more disposable income.
Okay.
Second, the massive growth of suburbs. Suddenly, you have these safe, well-lit neighborhoods packed with houses close together. Perfect territory for kids to go door to door easily and safely.
Right, the geography changed.
Exactly. And then, maybe the biggest factor, candy.
How so?
The industrial production of individually wrapped candies on a massive scale. That was the game changer.
Why was that so important?
Well, before that, people might give out homemade treats, fruit, nuts. But then these urban legends about people tampering with unwrapped foods started popping up. We'll get to those later.
Ah, the safety concerns.
Right. Individually wrapped, factory-sealed candy solved that problem. It felt safe. Plus, it was easy for households to buy a big bag, easy to hand out, consistent portions. It just made participation effortless for everyone.
And then the phrase itself catches on.
Yes. Trick or treat. We start seeing that phrase appear in print in North America around the 1920s.
Yeah.
It becomes the standard formula, the expected script.
So the performance element drops away.
Pretty much. It shifts from, I'll entertain you for a reward, to basically, give me candy or I might play a harmless prank, though the trick part was always more symbolic than real for most kids.
And the candy companies saw an opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. By the 1950s, candy manufacturers were actively, heavily promoting Halloween through advertising, tying their products directly to trick-or-treating. They helped cement it as this huge consumer event focused almost entirely on buying, giving out sweets.
So this Americanized version of Halloween, fueled by candy in suburbs, it didn't just stay in America, did it? It went global.
It really did. It became this massive cultural export, creating sort of universal visual language for the holiday.
How did that happen? How did it spread so effectively?
Primarily through mass media, especially movies.
Oh, Hollywood.
Exactly. Think about John Carpenter's Halloween back in 1978. Terrifying. But it defined a certain slasher movie aesthetic associated with the date.
Right.
And then later you get family-friendly stuff like Hocus Pocus. These films basically showed the world what American Halloween looked like. The costumes, the pumpkins, the trick-or-treating, the color scheme of orange and black. It created this visual shorthand.
A shared iconography.
Precisely. A language that crossed borders easily.
And now, in 2025, social media must be pouring gasoline on that fire, right?
Oh, completely turbocharged it. Instagram, TikTok,
Yeah.
they've just obliterated any remaining cultural boundaries. You see viral trends, amazing costume transformations, intricate makeup tutorials, creative DIY decorations spreading globally in seconds. Young people everywhere, even in countries with absolutely no historical link to Samhain or All Hallows Eve, they're engaging with the aesthetic of Halloween.
So it becomes less about the history and more about creative expression.
For many younger people globally, yes. It's a platform for performance, for creativity, for joining a global trend.
And corporations are helping drive this too, aren't they? Like Disney?
Absolutely. Disney theme parks worldwide have these huge, family-friendly Halloween events. They standardize the experience, make it accessible and desirable globally.
And companies like Spirit Halloween, the pop-up shops we mentioned.
Their success shows the sheer commercial power. That model of temporary, intense retail focus, it works because there's this global demand now for the costumes, the decorations, the whole Halloween experience, even if it's just for a few weeks.
But it's not always a simple copy-paste job, is it? Different cultures adapt it. Like the UK, they had Guy Fawkes Night already.
Right. Initially, there was definitely some resistance in the UK. Halloween was seen as this sort of brash American import, muscling in on their own traditional celebration on November 5th, Bonfire Night.
But Halloween seems to have won, or at least found a place.
The spending figures suggest it has. We're talking projected spending in the UK hitting close to $800 million for Halloween in 2025. That's huge. That hasn't necessarily replaced Guy Fawkes Night, but it definitely runs alongside it now. It carved out its own space in the calendar.
And what about somewhere completely different, like Asia?
Japan is a fascinating example. Halloween has become really popular there, especially in big urban areas like Tokyo Shibuya district.
What does it look like there?
It's less about traditional spooky stuff and much more about public performance, incredibly creative costumes, and cosplay. People often draw inspiration from anime and manga characters rather than Western horror icons.
So it's become a platform for Japanese pop culture expression.
Very much so. It shows how flexible the holiday can be, how different cultures can take the basic idea and completely reshape it to fit their own context.
Okay, given this global spread and the fact that Halloween deals with themes of death and spirits, we really need to clear something up. There's this common misconception, especially in the US, about Halloween and Dia de los Muertos.
Yes, this is so important. People sometimes call Dia de los Muertos Mexican Halloween, and they are fundamentally different. It's crucial to understand the distinction.
Where did the differences start? Origins.
Completely different origins. Halloween, as we've seen, comes from Celtic and later Christian European traditions, focusing on the thinning veil, spirits wandering, protection, and later remembrance.
And Dia de los Muertos.
Day of the Dead originates way back in pre-Columbian Mesoamerica cultures like the Aztec and Nahua. Their worldview was entirely different. They didn't see death as an ending or something scary in the same way. For them, death was simply a natural part of the continuum of life.
A different philosophy entirely. And the timing is different too, right?
Yes, though they're close on the calendar, which adds to the confusion. Halloween is October 31st. Dia de los Muertos is primarily November 1st and 2nd.
2 days.
Right. November 1st, often called Dia de los Inocentes, is for honoring children who have passed away. November 2nd is for honoring the adults.
And the actual practices, the rituals, are very different.
Diametrically opposed in feel, really. Halloween, especially its modern form, often plays with fear, spookiness, disguise. Day of the Dead is about joyful remembrance and reunion.
How do they achieve that reunion?
The central element is the ofrenda, the altar. Families build these beautiful altars in their homes or at grave sites. They decorate them with bright marigold flowers, photos of the deceased, candles, maybe their favorite foods and drinks, and iconic calaveras that decorated sugar skulls.
And the purpose of the ofrenda?
It's to welcome the spirits of their loved ones back home for a visit. It's a celebration, a feast shared between the living and the dead. It's about connection, not fear.
The whole aesthetic is different too, isn't it?
Completely. Halloween uses black, orange, purple colors we associate with night and spookiness. Day of the Dead is incredibly vibrant, bright pinks, yellows, oranges, blues. There's often a lot of humor, too,
Hmm.
especially with the skeleton figures depicted doing everyday things. It's colorful, lively, and celebratory.
So bottom line, two distinct holidays, adjacent on the calendar, both dealing with death, but with completely different origins, meanings, and emotional tones.
Exactly. And respecting those differences is key to appreciating the richness of both traditions.
Okay, let's tackle some of the modern baggage Halloween carries. Every year, it seems, we hear these stories, these panics about poisoned Halloween candy. The idea that strangers are out there trying to harm kids through trick-or-treat sweets.
Ah, yes, the Halloween sadism myth. It's incredibly persistent and incredibly damaging, often creating needless anxiety.
Is there any truth to it? Has anyone actually tracked this?
Yes, extensively. A sociologist named Joel Best at the University of Delaware has been researching this very topic since the 1980s. He's looked at police reports, media coverage, everything.
And what did he find?
His conclusion is pretty definitive. The widespread fear of strangers poisoning or putting things like needles or razor blades in Halloween candy is essentially an urban legend, a myth.
So it doesn't happen.
He states very clearly, quote, "No report of a child that's been killed or seriously hurt by a contaminated treat picked up in the course of trick-or-treating."
No confirmed cases of stranger poisoning killing a child during trick-or-treating?
Correct. The very few cases that get reported almost always turn out upon investigation to be hoaxes. Sometimes, tragically, kids injure themselves accidentally and blame it on the candy, or there are domestic situations, internal family issues that get falsely pinned on some anonymous Halloween ghoul.
But wait, isn't there always that one famous case people bring up? From the 70s.
Ah, you mean the Ronald Clark O'Brien case from 1974?
Yeah.
Yes, and ironically, that case actually proves Joel Best's point.
How so? Wasn't a child poisoned by candy?
Yes, tragically, O'Brien's own 8-year-old son, Timothy, died. He was poisoned by a pixie sticks laced with cyanide. But the key point is who poisoned him.
It was the father.
It was his own father, Ronald O'Brien. He did it to collect life insurance money. And chillingly, he gave poison candy to 4 other children as well, presumably to make his son's death look like a random attack by a stranger.
So it was a horrific family murder, disguised as Halloween sadism. He was deliberately using the existing urban legend as cover.
Exactly. It wasn't stranger danger at all. It was a calculated murder by a parent exploiting the public's fear.
And then something else happened later that probably made the fear worse.
Yes, the Chicago Tylenol murders in 1982, that was a completely separate, terrifying event where someone tampered with Tylenol capsules on store shelves, killing several people.
Unrelated to Halloween, but it happened near that time.
It happened in late September, early October. Because it involved poisoning random products, it unfortunately reinforced the public's anxiety about tampering. And that fear just got mentally mapped onto Halloween candy, even though the Tylenol case had nothing to do with trick-or-treating. That fear persists today, even with newer scares about fentanyl or cannabis edibles being given out, which authorities regularly debunk.
Okay, so if poisoned candy from strangers is largely a myth, what are the real dangers associated with Halloween that we should be concerned about?
The biggest one, statistically, is sadly mundane, but very serious. Traffic accidents.
Really?
Right.
More than other nights?
Yes. Studies consistently show that Halloween is one of the deadliest nights of the year for child pedestrians. More kids are hit by cars on Halloween than almost any other day.
Wow, why is that? What makes it so dangerous?
It's really a perfect storm of factors. First, you just have way more kids out walking around, often excited, maybe running, darting across streets, not always paying attention.
Yeah.
Second, the timing. Most trick-or-treating happens at dusk or after dark, exactly when visibility is lowest for drivers.
And the costumes don't help?
Often, no. Many costumes are dark-colored, making kids harder to see. And masks, they can seriously obstruct a child's peripheral vision, so they might not see a car coming from the side.
So what can people do? What are the practical safety tips?
It's about visibility and awareness for kids. Add reflective tape to costumes or bags, carry flashlights or glow sticks. For homes, use battery-powered lights and pumpkins, not real candles near walkways. And for drivers, just slow way down in residential areas on Halloween night. Be extra vigilant.
Good advice. Are there other real hazards besides traffic?
Yes, the costumes themselves can pose risks. Loose, flowing fabrics, especially synthetics.
Fire hazards.
Big time. If they brush against a real candle and a jack-o'-lantern or other decoration, they can ignite very quickly. That's why fire safety experts strongly push for using battery-operated LEDs instead of open flames. Much safer. And again, masks obstructing vision can lead to trips and falls. Simple, preventable things are often the biggest risks.
Let's circle back to the money then. We mentioned $12.2 billion in the U.S. in 2024. How does that actually break down? What are people spending all that cash on?
The numbers are pretty revealing. In 2024, it was roughly $3.6 billion just on candy.
Wow.
Then about $4.1 billion on costumes, and another $3.9 billion on decorations.
And didn't you say adult costumes are a huge part of that now?
Yes, that's a significant trend. Adult costumes now actually outsell children's costumes. It really underlines how much Halloween has become a major holiday for adult parties and events, not just for kids trick-or-treating.
And we talked about Spirit Halloween's pop-up model. That seems like retail genius, capitalizing on that short, intense season.
It's a masterclass in seasonal logistics. Over 1,500 temporary stores, often taking over spaces left empty by other struggling retailers. Minimum long-term commitment, maximum profit during that 6-week Halloween rush. They tap right into that desire for novelty, for temporary escape, and deliver it efficiently.
But all the spending, all these costumes and decorations, it comes at a cost, doesn't it? An environmental cost.
It really does. The environmental footprint of Halloween is pretty substantial and often overlooked.
How so? What's the main problem?
Single-use plastics, mostly. Think about the millions and millions of costumes bought each year. Most are made from cheap synthetic materials like polyester.
Like fast fashion, but for Halloween.
Exactly. They're often poorly made, designed to be worn once or twice, and then thrown away. And because they're usually mixed materials, they're incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to recycle.
So they just end up in landfills.
Vast quantities. One estimate for the UK alone suggested over 2,000 tons of plastic waste just from Halloween costumes and party supplies. That's enormous.
And what about the candy? All those individual wrappers.
That's the other big waste stream. While wrapped candy solved one problem, hygiene fears, it created another. Mountains of tiny plastic and foil wrappers that mostly aren't recyclable either. Convenience has an ecological price tag.
Okay, that's pretty sobering. But is anything changing? Are people starting to think about this? You mentioned a sustainable resurgence in 2025.
Yes, thankfully there's a definite shift happening. Consumer awareness is way up.
Do we have numbers on that?
Yeah, recent surveys suggest something like 68% of people celebrating Halloween in places like the UK and North America say they now consider the environmental impact when they're buying stuff.
68%, that's a huge jump.
It is, compared to maybe 23% just 5 years ago. So people are actively thinking about waste now.
How is that translating into action? What are people doing differently?
We're seeing a big boom in DIY and reuse. People making costumes from scratch, using things they already have, shopping at thrift stores, organizing costume swaps with friends or neighbors.
Getting creative to avoid buying new plastic.
Exactly. And online searches for things like sustainable Halloween ideas have apparently surged over 300%. People are looking for alternatives.
What about decorations?
There's a definite trend back towards natural traditional decorations, using real pumpkins, gourds, dried corn stalks, hay bales, and things that are compostable. And critically, making sure those millions of carved pumpkins actually get composted after Halloween instead of just being thrown in the trash.
So a move towards less plastic, more natural materials. And finally, you mentioned Ireland is actively trying to reconnect modern celebrations with the ancient roots.
Yes, there's a real cultural renaissance happening there. Ireland is proudly reclaiming its heritage as the birthplace of Halloween.
Oh.
Well, you have events like the Derry Halloween Festival. It's huge now, one of the biggest in Europe, drawing over 100,000 people. And it consciously tries to blend the modern fun with nods to the authentic Celtic traditions.
And isn't there another festival even more focused on the history?
Yes, the Puka Festival, held in County Meath, right near those ancient sites like the Hill of Tlachtga.
What's the focus there?
It's a very deliberate effort to revive the authentic Samhain fire ceremonies and atmosphere. They emphasize handmade crafts, storytelling, connection to the landscape, and actively try to avoid the commercial plastic side of modern Halloween.
Bringing it back to the source.
Exactly. And interestingly, technology is playing a role too.
Wow.
There are things like augmented reality apps that let you visit the ancient sites and see visualizations of how they might have looked during Samhain rituals thousands of years ago. And genealogy services are helping people trace their own family roots back, potentially connecting them personally to these ancient traditions. It's a fascinating blend of old and new. Hashtag tag outro, the enduring spiritual resonance.
So we've gone from Neolithic stone alignments and Celtic fire rituals all the way to $12 billion pop-up shops and TikTok trends. Quite a journey. What's the thread that holds it all together? What's the takeaway for someone, carving their pumpkin in 2025?
I think the enduring power, the reason Halloween persists in some form, is that it taps into really fundamental human needs the ancient Celts understood deeply.
Which are,
The need to acknowledge mortality, to face death, the need to connect with our ancestors, those who came before us, and the need to mark the turning of the seasons, that powerful shift in the natural world.
so the core purpose hasn't really been lost. It's just wearing different masks.
That's a great way to put it. The festival has never truly lost its soul. It's just adopted many, many different masks over the centuries. Some spiritual, some religious, some commercial.
So for you listening now, the message seems to be about intentionality. You can actually bring some of that ancient meaning into your modern celebration pretty easily, can't you?
Absolutely. It doesn't have to be elaborate. When you light a candle in your pumpkin, or maybe even have a small bonfire if you can safely.
You're echoing those ancient Samhain fires.
Exactly. You're participating in a thousands-year-old tradition of bringing light into the darkness. Or maybe take a moment to share stories about family members who've passed away. Some people even set up a small ancestor table with photos.
Fulfilling that need for remembrance, that hospitality the Celts practiced,
Precisely. It connects you to your own past.
and even carving the pumpkin itself, even if it's a silly face, not a terrifying turnip.
Even that simple act still carries the echo of the original jack-o'-lantern. It's about marking your home, creating a symbolic protection, participating in a community ritual. It translates that old protective magic into a modern, creative act.
So maybe the ultimate lesson here is something the Celts knew all along.
I think so. That life and death aren't opposites. They're deeply intertwined. They understood that by acknowledging death, by even wearing its mask for a night, whether through fear or fun, you create the space to think about mortality.
And doing that somehow helps you appreciate life more.
Paradoxically, yes. By confronting the idea of endings, even in a playful or symbolic way, it can actually free you up to embrace the vitality and meaning of life more fully while you have it. Remembering our dead truly can enhance our appreciation of the living.
A powerful thought to end on. Thanks for diving deep with us here at the Urban Herald.